The coffee in Laura's hands had gone cold an hour ago, but she kept holding the paper cup, because letting go meant admitting she had nowhere to put her hands. Nothing to do with the nervous energy that never quite left her body anymore. She stood outside the community center where she volunteered 3 nights a week, teaching basic computer skills to seniors who wanted to call their grandchildren. The fluorescent lights inside buzzed too loudly, and her head ached from the sound, from the exhaustion that lived in her bones like a second skeleton. Laura Martinez had been 28 years old for 3 months now, and somewhere along the way, she had forgotten that life could be anything other than a checklist of survival tasks. Wake up, work her data entry job, eat something cheap, volunteer because it made her feel less hollow, sleep. Repeat. The door opened behind her and Margaret, one of the regular students, shuffled out with her walker. "You look tired, dear." "I'm fine," Laura said automatically, the words smooth from repetition. She had been fine for so long that she had forgotten what not fine felt like, forgotten that there was supposed to be something between the cracks of just getting through each day. "You should get yourself a nice young man," Margaret said, patting her arm. "Someone to take care of you for a change." Laura smiled because that was what you did when elderly women said things like that. She did not say that the idea of wanting anything, of letting herself want anything beyond her next paycheck and keeping the lights on in her studio apartment, felt as foreign as speaking another language. She had dated in college before her parents died in the accident, before medical bills and funeral costs and student loans became the only poetry she knew. Now, wanting felt dangerous. Wanting meant disappointment, and disappointment cost energy she could not afford to spend. "Have a good night, Margaret," she said, helping the older woman to her daughter's waiting car. The evening air held the bite of early autumn, and Laura pulled her cardigan tighter. It had been her mother's, worn thin at the elbows, but she could not bring herself to throw it away. She walked to the bus stop, calculating in her head, $17.32 until Friday. She had enough. The bus was late, as usual, and she sat on the bench scrolling through her phone without really seeing anything. Social media was full of people her age getting engaged, buying houses, going on vacations. She had stopped feeling envious somewhere around year 2 of her survival marathon. Now it was just white noise, evidence of a parallel universe where people had the luxury of dreaming. "Excuse me, is this the bus to downtown?" Laura looked up. The man standing in front of her should not have been at a bus stop in this neighborhood. His coat probably cost more than her rent, and even in the dim streetlight, she could see the quality of everything about him, from his leather shoes to the watch on his wrist that caught the light like captured stars. He had dark hair that looked professionally cut, strong features, and eyes that seemed genuinely uncertain as he looked at the bus route map posted on the shelter. "Yes," she said, "but it does not come very often. You might want to call a car." He smiled, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to something that made her heart do an uncomfortable flip. She ignored the sensation. "My phone died, and I am apparently terrible at planning ahead. I was touring some properties in the area and my driver left, assuming I would call when I was ready. Classic miscommunication." Laura nodded, moving over slightly on the bench in silent invitation. He sat down, leaving a respectful distance between them, and she noticed he moved with a kind of ease that suggested he was comfortable anywhere, even on a graffitied bus bench in a neighborhood where his coat made him a walking target. "I'm Isaac," he said, extending his hand. "Isaac Irving." She shook it, his grip warm and firm. "Laura." "Nice to meet you, Laura. Thank you for not letting me wait at the wrong stop. I have a terrible sense of direction in cities I do not know well." "You are not from here," I split my time between several cities, he said, and something in the careful way he said it made her think he was choosing his words deliberately. Business. But I am considering some investments here, so I have been around more lately. They fell into silence, but it was not uncomfortable. Laura found herself sneaking glances at him from the corner of her eye. He did not pull out a laptop or seem impatient about the wait. Instead, he looked around the neighborhood with what seemed like genuine interest, watching the bodega across the street where Mr. Chen was pulling in his produce displays for the night. The group of teenagers laughing as they passed by sharing a phone screen. The old movie theater that had been converted into a church. "Have you lived here long?" Isaac asked after a few minutes. "All my life," Laura said. "Well, I went away for college, but I came back." By choice. The question was gentle, curious rather than intrusive, but it still hit something tender. "Necessity," she said, then wondered why she was being honest with a stranger. "But it is home. I know everyone. The rent is manageable," he nodded slowly. "That matters. Stability." "Yes," she said, surprised he understood. Most people who looked like him, who wore coats that expensive, talked about neighborhoods like this as investments, opportunities, potential. Not as home. The bus pulled up with a hydraulic wheeze and they both stood. Laura climbed on first, scanning her pass, and when she turned to find a seat, she saw Isaac standing at the fare machine with a confused expression, holding a $50 bill. "The machine does not take cash over $5, she said quietly, moving back toward him. The bus driver was already looking impatient, and the other passengers were starting to mutter. Without letting herself overthink it, Laura pulled out $2 in quarters from her purse and fed them into the machine for him. Something shifted in Isaac's expression, a softness that made her look away. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I will pay you back." "It is $2, she said, already moving toward an empty seat. "Do not worry about it." He sat down next to her even though there were other seats available, and Laura told herself the flutter in her chest was just anxiety, just the discomfort of proximity to someone who existed in a completely different world than she did. "Where are you headed?" he asked as the bus lurched into motion. "Just home," she said. "I volunteer at the community center a few nights a week, teaching seniors how to use technology." "That's kind of you," she shrugged. "It helps. Them and me both, I guess." "What do you do during the day?" "Data entry for an insurance company. Nothing exciting." Laura surprised herself by continuing. "But it is steady, and the benefits are decent so." She heard the way her voice trailed off, the way she was already apologizing for the smallness of her life before he could judge it. But when she glanced at him, Isaac was not looking at her with pity or condescension. He just looked interested. "Stability is underrated," he said. "I know a lot of people who chase excitement and end up exhausted." "You do not seem exhausted," Laura said before she could stop herself. He laughed, a real sound that made her smile despite herself. "I am very good at hiding it. But yes, I have the luxury of controlling my schedule most of the time. That makes a difference." They talked the rest of the bus ride, easy conversation about nothing important. He asked about the neighborhood, about the best places to eat, about what the city was really like beyond the downtown tourist areas. Laura found herself relaxing, forgetting to monitor every word, forgetting that she was supposed to be too tired for this kind of interaction with a stranger. When the bus reached her stop, she stood and Isaac did too. "This is me," she said. "Me too, actually," he said. "I am staying at the hotel 2 blocks from here." They walked off together, and the evening had gone fully dark now, streetlights creating pools of gold on the sidewalk. Laura was aware of him beside her, tall and solid, and somehow making her feel safer just by his presence. "Thank you for the company," Isaac said when they reached the corner where she needed to turn toward her apartment, And for the bus fare. Really. It was nice to meet you, Laura said, and she meant it, even though she knew she would probably never see him again. Men like him did not exist in her world beyond these brief, random intersections. Laura, he said as she started to turn away. She looked back. Would you have coffee with me sometime? I would like to talk more, and I promise I will pay you back your $2. She should have said no. She should have recognized that this was a complication she could not afford, a door to wanting things that would only remind her of everything she had trained herself not to need. But something in his eyes, something genuine and warm and patient, made her pause. I do not really have time for coffee, she said slowly. Breakfast then, or a walk, whatever fits your schedule. He pulled out a business card from his wallet, writing something on the back. My number is on here. No pressure, Laura, but I would like to see you again if you are open to it. She took the card, her fingers brushing his for a moment. Okay. His smile could have powered the whole block. Okay. Laura walked home with the card in her pocket, feeling something unfamiliar and almost painful in her chest. When she got to her studio apartment, she finally looked at the card. The front was simple, expensive cardstock with just a name and number. Isaac Irving, CEO, Irving Development Group. She pulled out her laptop and searched the name, then sat back in shock as the results loaded. Isaac Irving was not just wealthy. He was billionaire wealthy. His company developed sustainable housing projects across the country, and he was known for his philanthropy and for being intensely private despite his wealth. There were few photos, mostly from charity events, always with that same genuine smile. Laura put her head in her hands. Of course. Of course, the first man she had felt even a flicker of interest in for years was so far out of her league they were not even playing the same game. She should throw away the card. She should forget the whole evening. Instead, she put the card on her nightstand and tried not to look at it while she got ready for bed. The next morning, Laura woke to her alarm at 6, the same as always. She showered in 3 minutes to save hot water, dressed in the same rotation of work-appropriate clothes she had been wearing for 2 years, and made instant coffee because a coffee shop latte was $5 she could not justify. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Maria, the only person from high school she still talked to regularly. Dinner this week. You never see me anymore. Laura texted back that she would check her schedule, which they both knew meant she was calculating whether she could afford to eat out, even splitting an appetizer, and whether she had the energy to be social after work and volunteering. She loved Maria, but lately every interaction with people her own age just highlighted how different her life had become, how much she had shrunk into this small, manageable existence. Work was the same as always. She sat in her cubicle and entered data from insurance claims, her fingers moving automatically while her mind wandered. Usually her thoughts were a loop of worry and calculation. Bills and budgets, and how many more years until her student loans were paid off. But today, she kept thinking about Isaac on the bus. The way he had listened like her boring life was actually interesting. The way his smile had made her feel almost pretty. She was being ridiculous. He probably gave his card to lots of people and never expected them to call. Or he was married. Or he was the kind of rich person who collected quirky experiences with regular people like some kind of anthropology project. By lunch, she had convinced herself to forget about it. By the time she left work at 5, she was checking her phone to see if he had somehow gotten her number and texted first. He had not, obviously. She did not even give him her number. Laura went home, changed into her volunteering clothes, and headed back out to the community center. She was teaching Margaret and 3 other seniors how to use video chat tonight, a lesson that required patience and a lot of repetition. She was demonstrating for the fourth time where to click when the door to the classroom opened and Isaac walked in. Her heart actually stopped. He was dressed more casually today, jeans and a simple sweater, but he still looked wildly out of place in the shabby community center with its water-stained ceiling tiles and mismatched furniture. His eyes scanned the room and landed on her, and that smile appeared again, warm and real. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, addressing the whole room. "I am looking for Laura Martinez." "That's our teacher," Margaret said, looking between them with undisguised interest. "Are you the nice young man?" Laura felt her face flame. "Margaret, please, can you all keep practicing?" "I will be right back." She walked over to Isaac, very aware that 4 pairs of elderly eyes were tracking their every movement. "What are you doing here? You did not call," he said simply. "And I realized I kind of put you on the spot last night without giving you a chance to have my number to think about it. So I thought I would come by and see if you wanted to grab something to eat after your class. No pressure. You can absolutely say no. How did you know I would be here?" "You said you volunteered 3 nights a week teaching computer skills to seniors. I called around to community centers in your neighborhood until I found the right one." He said it matter-of-factly, like tracking her down was a completely normal thing to do. "I can leave if this is weird." "I am realizing this might be weird. It should have been weird. Maybe it even was weird," but Laura found herself smiling despite her better judgment. "My class ends at 8. "I will wait," Isaac said. "Unless you want me to come back, you can stay," she heard herself say. "There's chairs in the back." He settled into a plastic chair against the wall, and Laura returned to her students, hyper-aware of his presence. But as the lesson continued, she found herself relaxing. Isaac was not on his phone or looking bored. He was actually watching, seeming genuinely interested in how she broke down each step, how she patiently answered the same questions multiple times without frustration, how she celebrated with Margaret when the older woman successfully placed her first video call to her grandson. "You are very good at this," Isaac said as the students filed out at 8, each of them giving him curious looks on their way past. "Patient." "They remind me of my parents," Laura said without thinking, then felt the familiar ache in her chest. "They were getting older when they had me." "Late in life, baby. They would have needed help with this stuff if they had lived long enough." Isaac's expression softened. "I am sorry. When did you lose them?" 5 years ago. Car accident, both of them at once." She had learned to say it quickly, clinical, to keep the pain manageable. "I was in my last year of college." "That's why you came back," he said quietly. "Not just necessity. Grief too." Laura looked at him, surprised. Most people did not understand that part, how grief could root you to a place even when logic said you should leave. "Yes." "Do you want to talk about it over dinner, or would you rather talk about literally anything else?" She felt something loosen in her chest. "Anything else, please." They ended up at a small Thai restaurant 2 blocks away, nothing fancy, but when Isaac looked at the menu his face lit up. "I have not had good pad Thai in months. All the places near my usual hotels try to make it too fancy." They ordered, and Isaac insisted on paying despite Laura's protests. When she tried to argue, he just said, "You paid my bus fare." "I owe you at least a meal," with a slight smile that made her drop it. Over dinner, they talked about everything except the elephant in the room, which was that she had definitely looked him up online and knew he was absurdly wealthy. Isaac asked about her college experience, her volunteering, what she liked about the neighborhood. He told her about growing up in a small town in the Midwest, about studying business and architecture, about his obsession with finding ways to create affordable housing that was actually well-designed and sustainable. "Most developers treat low-income housing like a checkbox," he said, his voice taking on an edge of passion. "Ugly, cheap, the minimum required by law, but people deserve beautiful spaces regardless of their income. Design affects mental health, community, everything. Is that what you were looking at yesterday? Properties for a project? Yes. I am trying to buy a lot of old warehouses in your neighborhood to convert into mixed-income apartments. Real mixed income, not just hiding all the affordable units in the worst location. But I am running into some resistance from people who think I am just another rich developer who is going to gentrify everything and push out the people who already live there. Laura understood the concern. She had seen it happen to other neighborhoods, long-time residents priced out by new development. Are you going to push them out? No, Isaac said firmly. That is the whole point. I want to create more housing, better housing without displacement, but I get why people are skeptical. Talk is cheap. So show them, Laura said. Not just blueprints and promises. Show them exactly what you are planning, show them the numbers, bring in current residents to consult on the design. People trust action more than words. He looked at her with something like admiration. That is really smart. Would you be willing to help with that? Not as a job, I mean. Just as someone who knows the community, who could tell me if I am missing something obvious. Laura hesitated. It felt like stepping closer to something undefined, something that scared her. But it also felt like the first interesting thing anyone had asked her to do in years. Maybe I would have to think about it. Fair enough. Isaac leaned back in his chair, studying her. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Last night on the bus, you said volunteering helps you as much as it helps the seniors. What did you mean? Laura picked at the last of her pad tie, considering. She should deflect, keep things light. But something about Isaac made her want to be honest. I have been in survival mode for a long time, since my parents died. And somewhere along the way, I just stopped thinking about what I wanted, what would make me happy. I stopped thinking there was space for that. Volunteering is the one thing I do that is not about survival, that is not about paying bills or getting through the day. It reminds me that I am still a person and not just a machine for getting by. The words came out heavier than she intended, hanging in the air between them. Isaac did not rush to fill the silence with platitudes or advice. He just nodded slowly, his eyes serious. That sounds exhausting, he said finally. Living like that. It is what it is. What if it did not have to be? Laura felt something clench in her chest, defensive and afraid. I am not looking for a rescue. I am fine. I am not offering a rescue, Isaac said gently. I am just suggesting that maybe fine is not the same as happy, and maybe you deserve to think about the difference. She did not know what to say to that. The server came with the check, and Isaac paid while Laura sat with his words turning over in her mind like stones. Maybe you deserve to think about the difference. When had she stopped thinking? She deserved anything beyond survival. They walked out into the cooling night, and Isaac turned to her on the sidewalk. Can I see you again, Laura? Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. I mean, we live in completely different worlds. You are a billionaire. I am one emergency away from financial disaster. What are we even doing here? Having dinner, Isaac said simply. Getting to know each other. I like talking to you. You are smart and thoughtful, and you do not treat me like I am a walking bank account. That is rare in my world. And I think maybe you are lonely like I am lonely, and we could be less lonely together. No pressure. No expectations. Just seeing where it goes. Laura wanted to argue, to list all the reasons this was a bad idea. But she was so tired of saying no to everything, of keeping herself small and safe and alone. Okay, she said, but I have a busy schedule. I work and volunteer, and I cannot just drop everything. I will work around your schedule, Isaac said. Promise. They exchanged numbers, and when Laura got home that night, she had a text waiting. Thank you for dinner. Sleep well." She smiled at her phone screen, feeling foolish and hopeful in equal measure. Over the next 2 weeks, Isaac became a regular presence in Laura's carefully structured life. He showed up at the community center and helped her teach, revealing that he was surprisingly patient with technology questions himself. He brought Margaret flowers after she mentioned her garden was dying in the early frost. He met Laura for quick lunches near her office, always somewhere casual and cheap, because he seemed to understand without being told that expensive restaurants would make her uncomfortable. They talked about everything. Isaac told her about the pressure of inherited wealth, how his father had built the company, and he felt the weight of doing something meaningful with it, rather than just accumulating more. Laura talked about her parents slowly in pieces, about how much she missed them, about how their death had changed the entire trajectory of her life. "I was going to be a teacher," she admitted one afternoon as they walked through the park near her apartment. "High school English. I had a placement lined up and everything. But I could not afford to finish my certification without taking on more loans, and I needed income immediately after graduation because of all the debt, so I took the data entry job, planning it to be temporary. 5 years later, here I am." "Do you still want to teach?" "I do not know," Laura said honestly. "I have not let myself want it. Wanting things that feel impossible just hurts." Isaac was quiet for a moment. "What if I told you that getting your teaching certification is not impossible? That you could do night classes, that there are programs that help with the cost?" "I cannot afford night classes. And even if I could, I barely have energy for the life I have now. Adding school on top of it," she shook her head. "It is a nice thought, but it is not realistic." "Okay," Isaac said, and he dropped it, which surprised her. She had expected him to push, to try to solve her problems with his money. But he just squeezed her hand and changed the subject, asking about the book she was reading. It was those small things that slowly worked their way past Laura's defenses. The way Isaac never made her feel like a project to fix. The way he listened without trying to immediately solve everything. The way he fit himself into her life instead of expecting her to reshape herself for him. He learned her schedule, learned that she was tired on Mondays and needed quiet, learned that she liked terrible reality TV as a way to turn off her brain. One evening, 3 weeks after they had met, Isaac picked her up after her volunteer shift with coffee from her favorite cheap shop, not some expensive cafe. "I have something to show you," he said, "if you have time." "What is it?" "The property I have been working on, the warehouse conversions. We just finalized the purchase and I want to show you the plans, get your thoughts, like you agreed to a few weeks ago." They drove to the warehouses in Isaac's car, which was nice but not ostentatious, and Laura realized that was deliberate. He did not flaunt his wealth. When they arrived, he led her into what was currently an empty industrial space, their footsteps echoing. "This building will be the first one," Isaac said, pulling up blueprints on his tablet. 50 units, 15 of them affordable housing integrated throughout the building, not segregated. Community garden on the roof, shared workshop space on the ground floor, energy efficient, good public transport access. Laura studied the plans, impressed despite herself. "The affordable units are the same size as the market rate ones." "Yes, why should they be smaller?" "Most developers make them smaller to maximize profit." "I am not most developers," Isaac said. "I am going to make profit, do not get me wrong, but not by cutting corners on people who already do not have enough." They spent an hour going through the plans, and Laura found herself getting excited, pointing out things he had not considered, like making sure the laundry room had good lighting because that mattered for safety, like having a community bulletin board in the lobby for people to share resources. Isaac took notes on everything, asking questions, clearly valuing her input. "This is really good," Laura said finally. "I was expecting to find something to criticize, but this is genuinely good. Did you think I was lying about my intentions? I thought you meant well but might not understand what people actually need, but you do. Or you are trying to, which is more than most people do." Isaac smiled. "I had a good teacher. These last few weeks, talking to you, listening to how you think about community and what matters to people, it has helped me see gaps in my planning. I did not do anything. You exist. You told me about your life. That is everything." He looked at her in the dim warehouse light, and something in his expression made Laura's breath catch. "Laura, I need to tell you something. Okay. I am falling for you. I know it is fast, and I know our lives are complicated, but I cannot keep pretending this is just casual for me. You have reminded me what it feels like to be genuinely excited about something, someone. And I think I have done the same for you, at least a little. I see you starting to let yourself want things again, even if you do not see it yet." Laura's heart was pounding. "Isaac, you do not have to say anything back," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know where I stand. I am not playing games, and I am not doing this because I feel sorry for you or because I want some kind of trophy from a different world. I just really, really like who you are." She should have been terrified. This was everything she had trained herself not to want, not to need. But looking at him, at this man who had spent 3 weeks learning her life without trying to change it, who had shown up again and again without pressure, who looked at her like she mattered, Laura felt something break open in her chest. "I am falling for you too," she whispered. "And it scares me." "Me too," Isaac said. "But maybe we can be scared together." He kissed her then, soft and careful, and Laura kissed him back, letting herself feel it, letting herself want this without immediately calculating the cost. When they broke apart, she was smiling, and she could not remember the last time smiling had felt this easy. The next few weeks blurred together in a way that felt like finally waking up after years of sleepwalking. Laura still worked her data entry job, still volunteered, still lived in her studio apartment. But now there was Isaac, woven into the fabric of her days. They texted constantly, silly things and serious things. He sent her photos of his morning coffee. She sent him pictures of Margaret's increasingly elaborate hats. They saw each other whenever their schedules allowed, which Isaac made easier by being completely flexible. He took her to dinner at a nice restaurant once, when she agreed to let him, and he held her hand across the table and told her about his day, about the frustrations of dealing with city permits and construction delays. Laura realized he was sharing the boring parts of his life, not just the glamorous ones, and that mattered somehow. "My board of directors thinks I am crazy," Isaac said over dessert. "They want me to maximize density on the warehouse project, add more units, cut the affordable housing percentage. They say I am leaving money on the table. What are you going to do? Tell them no. It is my company. They can advise, but I make the final call, and I am not budging on this. Some things matter more than maximum profit." Laura squeezed his hand. "Your dad would be proud, I think." Isaac looked surprised. "Why do you say that?" "Because you are not just maintaining what he built. You are making it mean something. That is harder than just making money." His eyes went soft. "I love you." The words hung in the air. Laura felt her breath catch. She had known this was coming, had felt it building between them, but hearing it out loud still felt enormous. "I love you too," she said, and it was the first time she had said those words to anyone since her parents died. It felt like letting someone into a room she had kept locked, scary and relieving at once. They took things slow physically, both of them seeming to understand that this was about more than just attraction. When they finally slept together, 2 months after meeting, it was in Isaac's apartment because Laura felt self-conscious about her studio. He made her feel beautiful, wanted, safe. Afterwards, lying tangled together, he traced patterns on her shoulder and asked, "What do you want, Laura?" If you could have anything, what would you want? She thought about it, really thought about it for the first time in years. I want to teach. I want to do work that matters to me, not just work that pays bills. I want to feel like I am moving forward instead of just treading water. I want to be able to buy coffee without calculating whether I can afford it. I want to travel someday, even if it is just small trips. I want this, without feeling like I am going to mess it up because I am too tired or stressed. Okay, Isaac said. Let's make that happen. You cannot just make that happen. Life does not work that way. Some of it I cannot control, he agreed. But some of it we can work on together. What if I helped you with your student loans? Laura sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. No, absolutely not. Why not? Because I am not with you for your money, and if you start paying off my debt, that is what everyone will think. That is what I will wonder about myself. I need to know this is real, that I want you for you, not because you can make my life easier. Isaac sat up too, his expression serious. I understand that, but Laura, I have more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes. Helping someone I love is not the same as buying them, and watching you exhausted and struggling when I could help feels wrong. I am not your charity case. You are the woman I love. There is a difference. They stared at each other and Laura felt tears prick her eyes. I do not know how to let someone help me. I have been doing everything alone for so long. I know, Isaac said gently, and I am not asking you to suddenly become dependent on me. I am just asking you to let me be your partner. Partners help each other. What if we made a plan together, where you are still working toward your goals but maybe with some of the pressure reduced? You could still pay your own bills, keep your independence, but maybe we tackle the student loans together. You can pay me back if you want, no interest, whatever schedule works for you, or you can just let it be a gift. Either way. Laura wanted to say no reflexively, but she was tired, so tired of carrying everything alone. Can I think about it? Of course. They dropped the subject, but it sat between them, not uncomfortable but present. Over the next week, Laura thought about it constantly. She talked to Maria over coffee, finally introducing her friend to the man who had become so central to her life. He wants to pay off your loans. Maria said, eyes wide. Girl, marry him tomorrow. That is not the point, Laura said. I do not want to be someone who needs to be rescued. There is a difference between being rescued and accepting help, Maria pointed out. You have been holding yourself together with duct tape and determination for 5 years. Maybe it is okay to let someone else hold some of the weight. But what if it changes things between us? What if I start feeling obligated, or he starts feeling like I owe him? Do you think he would do that? Laura thought about Isaac, about how carefully he had approached everything, how he had never once made her feel less than because she had less money. No, I do not think he would. Then maybe trust him, trust yourself. That night, Laura invited Isaac over to her apartment for the first time. She had been embarrassed by how small it was, how worn her furniture was, but when he arrived, he just kissed her and said, "Thank you for letting me into your space." They sat on her couch and Laura took a deep breath. I have been thinking about what you said, about helping with my loans. Okay. I want to do it, but on my terms. I want you to pay them off now, but I am going to pay you back. No interest like you said, and whatever timeline I can manage. That way I am not in debt to the government anymore with their predatory interest rates, but I am also not just taking your money. I am accepting a better loan from someone who actually cares about me. Isaac was quiet for a moment, and Laura held her breath, waiting for him to argue. But then he smiled. That works for me, whatever makes you comfortable. Really, you are not going to try to convince me to just let it be a gift. I want you to feel good about this, not resentful or uncomfortable. If this is what you need, then this is what we will do." He pulled her close. "I am just happy you are letting me help at all." They drew up a simple agreement that night, nothing legal, just a document between them that stated the terms. Isaac transferred the money to pay off her loans the next day, and when Laura saw the zero balance on her student loan account for the first time in years, she cried. The monthly payment she had been making, $347, was suddenly available for something else. For savings, for her teaching certification classes, for breathing room. "Thank you," she told Isaac that night, her voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means." "I think I do," he said, holding her. "I see you, Laura. I see how hard you have been fighting, and I just want to make it a little easier." With the student loan pressure gone, Laura started looking into teaching certification programs. She found one that offered night and weekend classes, and while it was still expensive, it was manageable now, especially with Isaac's quiet insistence that he could help with that too if she needed. This time, Laura let him, with the same agreement. She would pay him back, but without the crushing interest rates and inflexible timeline. Starting classes while working full-time and volunteering was brutal at first. Laura was exhausted, but it was a different kind of tired. She was exhausted from moving toward something she wanted, not just from surviving. Isaac helped where he could, bringing her dinner when she had late classes, quizzing her on educational theory, sitting with her while she wrote papers even though he was working on his own projects. "You do not have to babysit me," Laura said one night as she typed up an essay on differentiated instruction. "I am not babysitting. I am spending time with my girlfriend who is working really hard, and I am proud of her. There is a difference." She looked up at him, this man who had somehow seen past all her defenses, who had reminded her gently and without pressure that she was allowed to want things, allowed to dream. "How are you real?" "I am just a guy who got lucky enough to meet you on a bus," Isaac said, kissing her temple. "Now finish your essay. You have a good argument going about adaptive learning environments." 6 months after they met, Isaac asked Laura to move in with him. She was sitting on his couch, exhausted from a long day of work and classes, and he just said it casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Move in with me. Your lease is up next month anyway, and I hate the nights when you are not here." Laura had been expecting this, had known it was coming, but still her first instinct was to find reasons to say no. "Your apartment is huge. I would feel like I was invading your space." "It is our space if you move in, and I would love to have you invade it, permanently." "What about my stuff?" "All my furniture. Bring it, donate it, store it, whatever you want." "I do not care about stuff, Laura. I care about you." She bit her lip, thinking. The practical part of her brain pointed out that this would save her money, that his apartment was bigger and nicer and closer to her work. The scared part whispered that she was becoming dependent, that she was losing her safety net. But the part of her that Isaac had slowly, gently coaxed back to life, the part that was learning to want things again, whispered that she loved him and wanted to fall asleep next to him every night. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I will move in with you." Isaac's face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen, and he pulled her into a kiss that turned into more, and later, wrapped in his arms, Laura thought that maybe this was what happiness felt like. Not perfect, not without fear, but real and warm and hers. Moving in together was an adjustment. Laura had lived alone for so long that sharing space felt foreign at first, but Isaac was patient, giving her room to spread out, never making her feel like she was in the way. He cleared out closets and drawers without being asked, making it clear that this was their home now, not his home that she was visiting. He learned to leave the bathroom light on at night because she sometimes got up and did not want to wake him by turning it on. She learned that he liked the apartment cold when he slept and started keeping extra blankets on her side of the bed. They figured out a rhythm, a life together. Laura finished her teaching certification program the following spring, 1 year after meeting Isaac on a bus. She cried when she got her final grades when she held the certificate in her hands that proved she had done it. Isaac took her out to celebrate, and over champagne she said, "I could not have done this without you." "Yes, you could have," Isaac said firmly. "It would have taken longer and it would have been harder, but you would have found a way. You are the strongest person I know, Laura. I just helped clear some obstacles. You did the actual work." She loved him for saying that, for understanding that she needed to know her achievements were her own even if he had helped make them possible. Laura applied for teaching positions and got hired at a high school 10 minutes from their apartment, teaching English literature to sophomores. The pay was not great, especially compared to what Isaac made, but it was enough, and more importantly, it felt right. She came home from her first day glowing, talking a mile a minute about her students, about the books they would be reading, about how much she had missed this kind of work without even realizing it. "I felt like myself today," she told Isaac that night. "For the first time in years, I felt like the person I was supposed to become before everything fell apart." "You have always been that person," Isaac said. "You just needed the space to remember." They fell into a new rhythm. Laura taught and loved it, even the hard days. Isaac's warehouse project broke ground, and he insisted that Laura come to the groundbreaking ceremony, introducing her to the board members and community leaders as his partner in every sense of the word. She watched him give a speech about sustainable development and community integration, and she felt proud of him, of what they were building together. 2 years after meeting on a bus, Isaac took Laura back to that same bus stop and got down on one knee. "I know this is probably not the most romantic location," he said, holding out a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious, something she would actually wear. "But this is where I met the woman who changed my life. This is where I met someone who reminded me what matters, who made me want to be better, who taught me that real connection has nothing to do with money or status, and everything to do with seeing each other clearly. Laura Martinez, will you marry me?" Laura was crying, nodding before she could even get words out. "Yes, yes, of course yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her while the bus pulled up to the stop and the driver honked at them cheerfully. They laughed, pulling apart, and Laura felt complete in a way she had not felt since before her parents died. She had thought survival was all she could hope for, that wanting more was dangerous. But Isaac had shown her, gently and without pressure, that she deserved more. That survival was not the same as living, and that she was allowed to want both. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Maria was Laura's maid of honor, and Margaret from the community center cried through the whole thing. Isaac's vows made Laura cry too, talking about how she had taught him what courage really looked like, how she had worked so hard for everything she had, how loving her had made him a better man. Laura's vows were about learning to want again, about how Isaac had reminded her that she was allowed to dream, about partnership and trust and building a life together that honored both of their values. They bought a house together in Laura's old neighborhood, close to the community center where they still volunteered together, close to the warehouse project that was now home to 50 families living in beautiful, affordable apartments. Isaac had insisted Laura pick the house, and she had chosen something modest by his standards but perfect for them. A place with room to grow, a yard, good light. 3 years into their marriage, Laura got pregnant. It was planned, wanted, but still terrifying in the way that big changes always were. Isaac was over the moon, already planning a nursery, already reading parenting books. Laura watched him and felt her heart swell. "Are you happy?" he asked her one night, his hand on her still small belly. "I am so happy," Laura said honestly. "Sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life, that I get to have this." "You deserve every bit of it," Isaac said. "You always did. You just needed to remember." Their daughter was born on a rainy Tuesday in November, with Isaac holding Laura's hand through the whole exhausting, terrifying, beautiful process. When the nurse placed their baby in Laura's arms, she looked at Isaac and saw tears streaming down his face. "We made a person," he said, voice choked. "We made a whole person." "We did," Laura agreed, looking down at their daughter's tiny face. They named her Elena Marie after Laura's mother. "Hi, baby girl, we are so glad you are here." Being parents was harder than either of them expected, but they figured it out together, taking shifts with late-night feedings, supporting each other through the exhaustion and uncertainty. Isaac was hands-on in a way that surprised Laura until she realized it should not surprise her. He had always been a partner, always shown up, always shared the weight. When Alina was 2, Laura got promoted to head of the English department at her school. It meant more responsibility but also more pay and more ability to shape curriculum in ways she believed in. She came home and told Isaac, who picked her up and spun her around in celebration. "I am so proud of you," he said. "Look at you, running the department after only 4 years. I have worked really hard. I know you have, and you deserve all of it." They settled into their life, raising Alina, working jobs they cared about, volunteering together. Isaac's company continued to grow, but he kept his focus on sustainable development and community impact, never losing sight of what mattered. Laura continued teaching, mentoring young teachers, making a difference in her students' lives. On their 5th wedding anniversary, they went back to the Thai restaurant where they had their first real date. It was fancier now, the neighborhood having grown up around Isaac's development projects, but still family-owned, still serving the same pad Thai Isaac had loved that first night. "You remember what you said to me at the community center that day you showed up?" Laura asked over dinner. "You said you thought I was lonely, like you were lonely, and we could be less lonely together." "I remember," Isaac said, reaching across the table for her hand. "I did not realize how lonely I had been until I was not lonely anymore. I had convinced myself that being alone was safer, that needing people was weak. You changed that for me. You changed everything." "We changed each other," Isaac said. "You taught me what it means to really work for something, to earn your life instead of just inheriting it." "You made me better, Laura." She squeezed his hand, looking at this man who had seen her when she had been invisible to herself, who had reminded her so gently without any pressure that she was allowed to want more than survival. "I love you. I love you too. Always." Years continued to pass, good ones, full of the normal chaos and joy of raising a child, building careers, staying connected to their community. Alina grew into a smart, kind girl who loved books like her mother and had her father's determination to make things better. They had a son 2 years after Alina, a boy they named Henry after Isaac's father, who had the same gentle persistence his dad had. Laura still taught, moving eventually into administration, but never losing touch with the classroom. Isaac's company became one of the most respected development groups in the country, known for proving that doing well and doing good were not mutually exclusive. They stayed in their neighborhood even as they could have afforded to move anywhere, both of them feeling rooted there, connected to the community they had invested in. When Laura turned 40, Isaac threw her a surprise party at the community center where they had met, where they still volunteered teaching technology to seniors. Margaret was there, now 92 and still wearing elaborate hats. Maria was there with her family. Laura's students and colleagues came. Elena and Henry had made decorations. "How did you pull this off?" Laura asked Isaac as they danced to music played by a local band he had hired. "Very carefully. You are observant, I had to be sneaky." Laura laughed, looking around at all the people who had filled her life, at the richness of it. She thought about the woman she had been 7 years ago, exhausted and alone on a bus bench, convinced that survival was the best she could hope for. She had forgotten how to want anything, forgotten that life could be more than just getting through each day. And then, Isaac had sat down next to her, had seen something in her that she had stopped seeing in herself, and had gently, without any pressure, reminded her that she was allowed to dream. That she deserved more than survival, that wanting things was not weakness but courage. "Thank you," she said to Isaac, her husband, her partner, the man who had changed her life simply by seeing her. "For what?" "For reminding me, for being patient, for loving me when I had forgotten how to love myself." Isaac pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. "Thank you for letting me, for taking a chance on the guy who did not know how to use a bus fare machine." They laughed together, swaying to the music, and Laura felt grateful for all of it. The struggle and the survival, yes, because it had made her strong. But also for this, for learning to want again, for building a life that was not just about getting by but about truly living. For the gentle reminder that she had always deserved more, and for the courage to finally reach for it. Their story was not about rescue or salvation. It was about partnership, about two people seeing each other clearly and choosing to build something together. It was about learning that accepting help was not weakness, that love was not transaction but gift, that survival was worthy but living was better. And as Laura looked around at her full, rich, hard-won life, she knew that the woman who had been so tired on that bus bench would be proud. Not just of what she had achieved, but of the courage it took to start wanting again, to start dreaming again, to start believing that she deserved happiness, and then doing the work to build it. The party continued around them, full of music and laughter and love, and Laura held tight to Isaac's hand, grateful for every moment that had led them here, grateful for the gentle reminder that had changed everything, grateful for the life they had built together one brave choice at a time.